It's an absolutely normal day in the world of Magic the Gathering, and by that I mean big things are happening. Capcom has just released the newest Street Fighter Secret Lair card, and we're gonna talk about the crazy future of draft boxes. Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The Magic Historian. My bones hurt. Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another installment of Mega Magic News! Asterisk Normal Edition. You'll have to go and read the comments on yesterday's video to get that one. Anyways, let us dive in first of all with the spoiler card, Hadoken! You will see it up on the screen. Now, this is interesting to me for a number of different reasons. First of all, this is Lightning Bolt, right? So Lightning Bolt is just 1 red, do 3 damage to any target. But it's interesting on a couple of other levels. First of all, the fact that it's renamed as Hadoken. We've seen this happen before, but unlike other cards that we've seen before, you take a look at Hadoken, right below the name of the card, you'll see the actual name of the card, Lightning Bolt. But when you go to the text box, the card refers to itself as Hadoken. Up until now, all of cards that were done in this style would use the original card's name in the text box. So if this Hadoken had been done in that style, it would say Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage to any target. Now, that is not a massive change, but it is an interesting change. It's also interesting to note that this makes the Secret Lair even more unique in that all of the Street Fighter cards, with the exception of Hadoken, are all functionally unique cards that have been added in to the game of Magic, as opposed to these reprints, right? So we've got 1 reprint and a bunch of functionally unique cards, which makes for an interesting mix. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this Hadoken is supposed to be the bonus card or not, because this reveal is being done in a non-traditional way, right? Wizards of the Coast has revealed the majority of the Secret Lair, and Capcom revealed this card. So it is unclear to me whether we're actually going to get a 10th bonus card. I feel like because this is a reprint and isn't a Street Fighter character and is a move instead, that this could be the bonus card, although I'm really hoping that the bonus card turns out to be M. Bison, because that would be absolutely awesome. I know there are other people who'd rather it be Vega or somebody else, but I'm holding out hopes for M. Bison. Somebody did float the cool idea of having the bonus cards being a random selection, so it could be any of the different Street Fighter villains. So it remains to be seen until these Secret Lairs come out what the bonus card is going to be. In fact, it could be something as crazy as a persistent petitioner with Street Fighter characters on it, although I doubt that's the case because the licensing around these sort of properties is very different. If you did not know this, normally when Magic artists do the artwork for cards, they will be sent artist proofs and they will be given the rights to sell playmats and prints and stuff like that of the artwork. When it comes to stuff like the Street Fighter artwork, the artists do not have that right. So there are different licensing. They won't be sent artist proofs. They're not allowed to do playmats or anything like that. They essentially just get paid for the artwork, and that's the end of it. And that's part of the reason that Wizards of the Coast is doing that whole, hey, we're going to reprint these cards as regular Magic cards in the future. So all of these Street Fighter characters that we've seen will show up as genuine in the world of Magic cards at some point down the line. I don't know exactly how long it takes for them to filter out. I think it's like within a year of them coming out, but Wizards of the Coast changes things all the time. Now, looking at the artwork of the Hadoken, I'm actually going to put the artwork of Ken up on the screen at the same time from the card, because on the card you can see him doing the Hadoken maneuver, right? You can see his hands are, and he's firing off that blast of ki energy. Essentially, what he's firing off here is spirit energy. So at first, I didn't know that, right? Like, I had only played the video game. I don't know any of the underlying lore. So when I saw that Hadoken was a lightning bolt, I actually went, wait a minute, it looks like fire. Why is this a lightning bolt? So first of all, let's be very real. From a gameplay standpoint, if they included Fireball as the bonus card, that would be fine for anybody who likes Street Fighter but doesn't know Magic. But if you play Magic, we all know Fireball is not a good card. Lightning Bolt, 1 mana instant speed, 3 damage, that's great. Fireball, X, slow, whatever. I mean, unless you're playing a crazy old, even the old school format, let's just be real. Fireball just ain't up to snuff. It is interesting to note, though, that Lightning Bolt now exists in multiple secret layers and probably will show up in more. But anyways, this isn't fire energy that he's firing off here. It is spirit energy. So the idea of it being electrical energy coming from like generated by a human's body or whatever actually kind of feels more in line with Lightning Bolt. So I do dig that. All right, now, this is a cool little bonus card. Let us talk about the draft booster situation. Now, this conversation is being spurred on by a Blogatog post where somebody asked Mark Rosewater, with the rise of digital play, more collector-focused products, and advances in printing tech, do you see a world where draft boosters can step away from their role as the primary bottleneck for card acquisition and lean harder into their identity as a limited game piece? And Rosewater's response was, how would people feel about cards unique to the draft booster that are designed specifically for draft? Now, when it comes to Rosewater making posts like this on Blogatog, like half the time, it turns out that what's happening in the question there is what's actually happening in reality. You know what I mean? Sometimes he already knows these changes are coming, and he's just basically trying to put feelers out and see how people are going to respond to it. And then some other times, it's literally like these plans aren't in the works, but they end up being put into the works, right? So if you look just at this question, you may just, okay, this is just a person going, hey, are you guys going to do this? And Rosewater going, well, hey, what do you guys think? And I really started to think about it and dive down into it. And draft boosters are pretty much, in my opinion, guaranteed to change. Now, you may have heard already the rumors floating around that draft booster boxes are going to be going from 36 packs down to 24 packs. Now, that rumor is somewhat believable to me. The changing draft packs it's not up for debate. That has to happen. If you've been paying attention to what's going on with Magic the Gathering, they've brought in set boosters, right, to make a more exciting opening experience. Draft boosters were the forefront of Magic. For the longest time, draft boosters were the way. You open up draft boosters, you get your cards from those packs, and you can play them in standard, you can play them in modern, you can play them in whatever. Everything had to come through the draft boxes, and the idea was standard was like the gateway into Magic the Gathering. So when you start playing standard. Now, Wizards has seen over the years, especially with the last couple of years, that draft boxes and the standard experience aren't nearly as important to gain and retain customers, right? A lot of their players are just playing Commander, Tabletop Magic, or whatever else. So you have to find ways to appeal more to those players. So what have they done? We've seen obviously the creation of the Brawl format. We have seen a ramping up of the Commander decks as well. We have seen them put bonus cards that you can only get in set or collector boosters into these packs in an attempt to essentially get you buying the set and the collector boosters over the draft boosters. They're doing everything in their power to make other boosters more attractive for you. Nothing has been done to change or improve draft boosters overall, with the exception of including some styles or stuff like that. Draft boosters have remained essentially untouched for decades. So they've brought in these other products and they've moved the price point up, right? So now you buy a set booster, it's more expensive than a draft booster, right? And once they make these changes and fully get everything set up, they're going to be able to increase the price of draft packs and go, well, look, you get 15 cards in this pack. It's optimized for draft, right? So this is a different style product now, and we put unique cards in here that you can only get in these packs to make it a draw for this. Now, the whole concept of cards that were designed specifically for draft opens up a wide array of options. You may be looking at a situation where you have Conspiracy, for example. And if you're not familiar with Conspiracy, Conspiracy was what do they call them? The summer fun sets? Something they threw out in the middle of the year just to see what would happen, right? And Conspiracy was designed in a way where you would draft, conspiracies. You would draft them and they would give you particular bonuses based on the draft. So they were very cool for drafting, but they were hyper parasitic. Essentially, these cards become useless afterwards to almost all players. think the same thing as silver bordered cards. You have like your unfans where they're like, yeah, I love these cards. But the majority of players look at silver bordered cards and go, this is unplayable garbage to me. The same thing happened with the conspiracy cards. So I don't really see them specifically going and like creating something that parasitic for the draft experience. I'm expecting that even when modifying the draft boxes, they're going to want to maintain that setup they have where they're creating cards that you want for other formats. It's an interesting line to walk. If you want to look at it from the positive side of things, if they did specifically tweak draft packs just for the draft experience, that means they could remove wonky rares that are really cool for deck building, but ultimately fail in drafts. So for example, there's a card in the Kamigawa set, and it lets you play with like tons of copies of legendary creatures. It basically says, ignore the legendary rule, and I'm going to give you a bonus for having out multiple copies of the same legend. It's like, okay, that's cool, but that's something you would build around. In draft, you are very rarely going to be able to harness the power of that card, right? You're just going to go, okay, what, am I maybe going to get 2 copies of the same uncommon legend that I can get out and they'll both get a little bonus? Like ultimately, you can't take advantage of those cards. So from a positive perspective, being able to shift the draft experience and remove cards that don't like bomb rares and stuff like that, because let's be real, the majority of commons and uncommons are already specifically designed for draft, and that's part of what creates the blandness about them. A lot of commons and uncommons in Magic are great for delivering the flavor of a set, so you can see what the world looks like. They're great for delivering the basic mechanics. Here's how this mechanic works. Here's how this mechanic works. But they're very poor at having an impact on anything other than their own draft format, right? Originally, Magic sets weren't designed for draft formats. Wizards of the Coast just started to do that so that they could get more money out of selling the booster packs. And then ultimately, if I'm being very real, the excuse of optimized for draft was used on products like Modern Masters and these other sets as a way of justifying why they included a bunch of cards that really aren't worth anything in these expensive booster packs. So drafting like used to be more of a focus for them, and then they just kind of started to use it more as an excuse for other sets that weren't inside a standard. The standard sets still stuck with the draft and pretty formulaic. You will notice if you draft set after set, you'll be like, okay, here's the same creature from last set. They just changed the creature type, or they tweaked one power. Like the number of Pegasi that I played with, where it's like, yo, this guy gives another guy flying when he attacks. It was like, boom, year after year, we did that. I mean, they change it up every once in a while, but it seems like they have these, we need a card that does this, we need a card that does this, we need a card that does this. So the draft boxes end up being very like rote in some ways, which makes them a less desirable product for people in a lot of ways, right? If you're not into drafting, all of a sudden you look at set and collector boosts and you're like, I can get much better cards from these. Overall, the draft boosters are essentially lagging. So what I'm expecting to happen is they are probably going to cut the booster boxes down from 36 to 24 packs, because for a draft, you only need 3 packs for 8 people, right? 36 packs was the whole, well, you know what? You need 8 packs each for drafting, and then there's 12 extra packs in there that you can use for prize support. Well, they don't need to do that, right? They don't need to include those anymore. And having like the booster packs being fewer in the box, changing the price, changing the cards that are in, if you change everything about the product, it almost becomes like a new product. And at this point, draft boosters are the dog product of Magic the Gathering, right? They are the lowest booster on the totem pole, unless you consider theme boosters to be lower because you don't like them. But I think Wizards considers theme boosters to be above them because they can sell them for more money. They're like a fatter booster pack, but you have a lesser chance of getting rares and stuff. They can keep you chasing things. So I really do feel there's going to be a bunch of tweaking going on to the draft boosters. Specifically putting unique cards you can only get into draft boosters is one way to make the experience different, right? You go, okay, we've got 24 packs in the box. This is exactly enough for 8 people to draft with, right? And then we create unique draft-specific cards that are awesome maybe in the draft, not so great outside the draft, do stuff like that. That might be how it starts, but rest assured that after a while, Wizards of the Coast will want you buying every product. So they will start to insert cards that are for draft, in when they're really like, hey, look at this card. Come on, man, it's for Commander. That's how I feel like it's gonna go ultimately. Wizards of the Coast go, hey, here's the idea behind the product, and it's just to get you used to it. And then once you're used to it, they change things. Like look at the Mythic Rares. They brought in Mythic Rares and said, Mythic Rares only exist so that we can make big flashy cards that really impress people. They're definitely not there to make tournament staples. And then you live in the current era and they make Ragavan, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess you just wanted to make a flashy, mythic, huh? That's not overpowered or anything. That's not gonna need a banning. Anyways, I see big changes coming for draft boosters. Obviously, that's not set in stone, but let's be real. Wizards of the Coast is gonna keep pushing for profits. Draft boosters is an area that is ripe for exploration because it's unmined at this point. They've made other boxes and done all kinds of stuff, but they haven't really drilled in deep. So this has been a normal dose of normal news. A big thank you to all my patrons, and I'll see you next time.